Hey, I'm Rob,
And I'm Mike.
and we're just two normal lads exploring the mysterious, the controversial, and the conspiratorial.
Join us each week down the rabbit hole for our latest exciting discussions, ideas, and tinfoil banter.
Tinfoil Banter, serious questions, questionable conclusions.
What is the Book of Enoch? There are 3 books of Enoch, each with separate parts. We'll be focusing on the 5 parts of 1 Enoch, the first book. It's an ancient Jewish text that expands on the story of fallen angels, divine judgment, and the end times.
The end times. So we're
The
there,
end
Mike.
times. Now, who was Enoch? Do you even know this one, Rob?
Enoch isn't really mentioned much in the OG Bibles, right? So
No.
you got your New and Old Testament. You got the stuff about before Jesus and stuff after Jesus. In general, he's kind of feels like a side character.
A side character, but he's the great grandfather of Noah.
A great grandfather of Noah. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's also the oldest. No, wait, his son is the
Yeah.
oldest person in the Bible. His son's like 900 and something years old, something like that, 960.
Fair enough.
And Enoch was actually 365 years old, according to
Of course
the
he
Bible.
was. Of course he was.
According to the genealogies, right? So he's also the 7th generation, by the way.
From Adam and Eve.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently September means like perfect or something like that when it comes to this ancient Hebrew stuff.
7's a lucky number. Why not?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is mentioned kind of a couple of times throughout, and actually part of the Book of Enoch is quoted in the New Testament itself, which is kind of why it's an interesting point that this was never actually canonized into the original Bibles.
Yeah.
As a plot story. Mm-hmm.
Widely known in ancient Judaism and early Christianity. So it comes before Christ in the Old Testament sort of era.
That's the really hard thing to follow, because it's 5 parts that seem to be written at different times, which suggests different authors, which is kind of part of the reason why it's not really given the validity perhaps it deserves, is because it's supposed to be written by Enoch, right? But it can't really track that back, and some of the dates don't match up, but some of it appears, especially the first couple of sections. The Book of the Watcher is supposed to be 300 to 200 BCE.
That tracks.
Well, so yeah, that's the interesting part, and the way that like the parts of the Bible read when they do mention Enoch or they do quote it, it seems it's like, oh, the Book of Enoch, like it's just kind of referencing like it's a well-known thing, like you're mentioning Queen, Queen, the song by Queen. So I just don't think. I think that's part of the reason why, if it had such a foundation to some of the elements of the Bible, was like had importance to it, why wasn't it included? And as I mentioned, there are some fair enough reasons for that. But then the further you go down the rabbit hole, you can always find little conspiracies around these topics as well, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end.
So it's interesting in as much as when the Bible was being collated, it was referenced so much, it was referenced at least, that they knew about it, and it was canon event in.
So Enoch's in the Old Testament,
yeah,
right? And then mentioned in Genesis and in the genealogies, which is why we know what we just said about him being the grandfather of Noah, right? But it's the New Testament that actually quotes the book, so he's kind of like before and after, right? And again, Enoch, the Book of Enoch in itself, the Enoch 1, just the one part of it, spans over different years in itself. So I'm finding it very difficult to track in terms of time period. But the idea being is it's all happening at the same time. He seems to reference it a lot. There's some really odd stuff in Enoch, which is also part of the reason maybe why it wasn't included in the OG Bibles, because it's kind of controversial and gives you a different perspective on some stuff, or at least that's how I felt when I read about it. So that's why I think it's one of those interesting ones where it's like not a conspiracy. This is just like a mystery. But then if you follow the mystery, you can easily start to derive some of the conspiracies from it. And we'll chat about that at the end. But just before we get into that, I just wanted to talk about like how it was found. So it was kind of like, the idea is that now we understand that it was quite everyone knew about it because of the way it's referenced, but wasn't like rediscovered in Europe until like 1773. I think it was a guy called James Bruce. He like bought the manuscripts from Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is really important because the Ethiopian Christian church includes the Book of Enoch, canonized as part of their Bible. So it's not that everyone doesn't believe that the Book of Enoch should be excluded or included, because you literally have versions of it where it is included.
And always has been.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, you know about the Dead Sea Scrolls as well.
Yep, I know the story about how they were found, at least. Anyway, so between the West Bank and Jordan, the shepherd was doing shepherdy things, and the goat runs up into the hills, and basically the shepherd loses his goat. He goes into the hills and he spots the caves and thinks, oh, that's probably where the goat has gone. He goes in and he finds himself jars, clay jars. He opens them up and finds a scroll. He takes them basically into town, sells them, and they eventually find their way into the hands of a dealer in these things who discovers what they actually are when he deciphers them. And they get sold on again to a museum, and they trace it back to where these things originally came from, and discover more in different locations in the same sort of complex of hills.
Yep.
And they start plucking them and just cracking them open and finding them.
And in fact, there's roughly 900 manuscripts and fragments that have been found. It's quite a lot, and almost the entirety of the Bible is in there as well. So I think there's like one chapter missing or something. I can't remember which one it is, but there's also a lot of other apocryphal or like pseudeographical documents in there as well as Enoch. So a lot of it's not included. It's not just that Enoch wasn't included.
No, there's other stuff in there.
Yeah.
But do you not think that's a bit of a controversy in itself? Finding all of these.
Well, it looks like a library, right? It looks like it was like some sort of library. That's how I understood it, or at least a way they stored documents like this. There's a reason someone had preserved them, and they all, were left in one place. Where were they? I think they were found in like what would have been Judea, right? I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, it backs up the story, right? So that, yeah, maybe it's convenient. It's an interesting one there, but to be honest, it only really validated what we already knew.
Yeah,
that makes sense, because it wasn't that we'd already rediscovered the Book of Enoch in 1773. This didn't happen until 1947 to 1956, which is quite a long.
It just seems weird that you'd find books in like the Cumbrian hills, a whole load of them.
Well, you don't know what it was before, I guess.
Yeah.
Things change over time. Maybe there was something there before. It's an interesting one, but I think their discovery of it's kind of cool because a lot of that's quite recent. As I said, like 1947 is not that long ago that we're really only just finding some of these like really, really old manuscripts. But yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, there's a reason why some of these things aren't canonized, and mainly because it's not also widely accepted across all churches. I mentioned Ethiopia. We're like, yeah, we're gonna canonize it, but most people didn't.
They have over double the amount of books in their collation of the Bible than Christians do.
Oh, really?
Well over double.
Huh.
So they'll chuck anything in there. They'll read it all. They don't mind.
Got ya. Neither of us are Christian, so but I guess we would say we're agnostic, atheist maybe at times, but like mostly agnostic, open to whatever's out there. However, I think we're both from like Christian or Catholic backgrounds.
Yeah.
So we want to handle this with respect, but equally it's quite a heavy topic, so you've got to try and line it up. But just going back to the book itself, according to the story, 200 fallen angels who are called the Watchers, they descended upon Mount Hermon, which is known as Oath Mountain, and they were led by a angel called Samuz or something like that. And they basically all got to this mountain, and they were like rebellious, and they wanted to essentially live among the humans and procreate with the women. So they basically swore an oath that they would take wives each, like of any human they wanted, right? So
They
these,
swore amongst themselves that they would take wives.
yeah. What a bro. That's cool, dude. Anyway, Samuels was like, whatever, take a wife, take a bro, take whatever you want. But the idea is they take what they want, which is in itself, it's a bit frowned upon now. Can't really do that. But they're angels. They're not even like humans, right? These are like spectral, spiritual beings. They don't even necessarily have human bodies. So they basically cohabit the earth with the humans and have offspring with the humans. But not only do they have offspring with them, they teach them things about like metallurgy and like cooking and farming and enchantments and like sorcery
Hmm.
and the art of war and like blacksmithery and
Cosmetics was also mentioned.
cosmetic. Yeah, well, because apparently that reason that's mentioned is because it increased. The problem is introducing these things to humans actually was negative, because the way the world then went was with the cosmetics. It actually increased prostitution, which was in itself a sin. So
Ah,
that was one of the sins that came out of it. So the reason it mentions those certain things is what the sin results in, right? So the art of
ah,
war being that war is obviously awful and downfall to humanity. So the problem was, as much as the angels thought they were doing like a good thing here, cohabiting
yeah.
and teaching, they
Makeup
actually were
tutorials.
effing shit up. Meanwhile, these offspring I mentioned earlier, they're actually giants, by the way. So not sure how that works physically for a poor woman human. That aside, these guys are massive. They're supposed to be the size of the Statue of Liberty, and they're messing stuff up because they are
Hmm.
hungry, and they're supposed to be the worst of humans and the worst of angels. And so
Ah,
these guys are supposed to they're like devouring everything and animals and eventually people, and essentially devour the earth. So this is a bit of a problem. And the archangels, some of the big boys, can't remember their names now, like
Michael's one
Michelangelo,
of them.
Raphael, Leonardo. Oh no, that's Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Anyway, those dudes are like, hey God, this have you seen what's going on down here with these 200 angels that have been like effing some humans? And he's like, wait, what? So he's not having any of it. And the idea is that he sends the angels down to basically punish his archangels down to punish the angels. He sends the flood, and basically exiles these angels into darkness under the earth or something like that, or under a mountain.
Hmm.
Something very epic. So
A
this
proto
story,
hell.
yeah, this story has been told as like a vision by a man called Enoch. And so after all this has happened, then basically Enoch's given like a tour of the universe and just gone, all right, here you go. Now, by the way, now you've known all that's going to happen, I'm also going to just give you a quick tour of the universe and the heavens. So this is like a double layered story. You've got Enoch and his life, and he has this vision of this old time. And
Uh-huh.
then part of his story is then him becoming aware of like everything, right? The universe and how it's all put together. And that kind of leads into one of the later parts, which is about basically just about the universe and about astrology, which we'll get to in a minute. But that first story in a minute on its own, that's just the first part, is crazy.
Yeah.
It's it's mental. There's so much happens there, and it makes you wonder about how humans were made, and like maybe that's questions the idea of like evolution, for example, that we didn't necessarily, because we're actually procreated with angels. And if angels and giants were here, does that suggest some of the crazy stuff we find in
Was
archaeological
made
digs?
by giants.
Was the pyramids made by giants, Mike? That's the
I mean, they
question.
predate this, but well, they don't predate it because he's being told this. This is what
The,
happened in the
the
past.
book doesn't predate it, but the story is supposed to predate the flood, which happens before. Which I
This is
think
where we get the conspiracy theory.
the idea is, I think that the flood happens in like I think it's 10,000 BC or something like 12,000 BC before,
Okay.
and everything we found since then is what's left. So that they're pretty certain the flood happened. I think, in
Uh-huh.
terms of like historically and geographically.
Yeah.
Um, but this is obviously the flood sent by God. Or has there been many floods over time? And this is speaking about a completely different one that was even before those times. Is it just a cycle? Is it just a cycle of civilization, angels, God, civilization, angels, God, and it's
Well, all civilizations have their divine interventions in some
yeah.
way or another and
Well,
attribute
that's
it to natural sort of events.
well, we'll have to do one on Atlantis separately because that really links in here. They're like the guys that own Atlantis are these. I think they're the giants, so they're what they call the Nephilim. So the giants I keep mentioning are called Nephilim or something like that.
Uh-huh.
But I can't really pronounce that word very well, so just call them giants because that's what they are.
Just
Um,
remember a Geordie saying that there's no film on.
Nephilim,
There's
Nephilim,
Nephilim.
Nephilim.
So
So
they,
yeah,
they own Atlantis.
something like that. But we'll get into that separately. There's
Oh,
also
okay.
like obviously Greek and Norse stories where you've got lots of these angels and gods, and maybe that's like the idea of like we got Thor, because I think the giants like kind of take parts of the world, if that makes sense as well. So it kind of like crosses over with some other cultural ideas as well, which is really
Yeah,
interesting.
there's giants mentioned Merlin with Stonehenge.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
giants do pop up a lot throughout stories and mythology, and who knows, maybe history, which is really interesting.
There must be some more like evidence for giants though, bones and things.
Well, I've mentioned it before. I think they there's claims that the
Ah,
Smithsonian had giant bones like logged in there, but I don't know how legitimate that is. I need to look up that a bit more. Um, So then you got the second part, right?
mhm.
Part two. So these parts are kind of disjointed. They're also written at different times. This one's written in like the first century, maybe, or maybe just before the first century. It's unsure. But the first part's written before that. So that makes sense. But later we go back in time again. So I don't know how they were placed. Maybe it's to do with how they were found, or I think they found parts of this on like one whole tablet or something like
Right.
that. So the second part is just about three visions that Enoch has, okay, and they're called parables, and it's basically like similar stuff, but just really about like the future of the human race now, right? So it's talking about how the sinners and the oppressive rulers will be like judged, right? So Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Trumpy and all you guys, F you, and then all like the righteous and chosen, whoever, tumbleweed, whoever they are, they will be vindicated, right? And God's justice will be revealed openly. So, like, the idea is that times are going to change if you keep following a world of sin. Okay. So it's kind
But it
of,
is a lot of fun though, isn't it?
well, yeah, I'm drinking a beer right now and talking about a religion that I probably have no right to talk about. But that being said, yeah, you've got to enjoy life too. You only get one of them, right? So, that yeah, idea being that the sinful will be punished, especially like the real bad people, like the guys at the top that have been like driving the world in the wrong direction. Then you got the second parable, which talks about the chosen one and the Son of Man. So this is kind of like prerequisite to Jesus, basically talking about someone who will become and basically judge with divine authority. Okay, so
Hmm.
it's the idea of, but he doesn't call him Jesus of Nazareth or anything like that. It just suggests it will happen, and this is before, so this is kind of strange, right? So this is
Hmm.
like why when you've got stuff like this in here, why is it not mentioned in the Bible? Because this gives you background to some of the stuff that is in Genesis and it is in Jude. And then finally, you have the third parable, okay, which is kind of more about talking about judging the angels finally, right? So these angels and the giants that got punished before, I think the giants were like effed up, but the angels, they were basically hung in darkness forever until the end times where they would be finally judged by their maker, right? Which
Hmm.
so it's the idea that once all of that's done, there'll be harmony on earth, and it's time to then finally judge these angels and give them what happens then. It says the cosmic and earthly judgment reaches its completion. I don't know, that might mean we implode on ourselves, like complete a game, and
Yeah.
then loads a new one. I reckon that's it. So yeah, a lot of really deep stuff to think about there. Yeah, what do you think, Mike?
I hear it being compared as like a spin-off of Bible, of the books of the Bible, but it sounds like a lot of it predates the New Testament and
Yeah.
almost influences things in the New Testament. So it's not a spin-off. It might be a spin-off of the first,
Well,
sort of the Old Testament.
it's no, it predates the Old Testament too, right? Well, at
Uh,
least Enoch does. Enoch as a person does.
yeah.
because it's mentioned in Genesis. So
I don't know what I think about it, to be honest.
it's quite interesting. Like
It's
not
fantastical.
only yeah, it's fantastical. And to be honest, man, like being Christian or not, like there's some very cool stories in the Bible that kind of say a lot without saying a lot. That side, you do have some more direct stuff in here as well, which is kind of interesting. So the third section is the astronomical book. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, that's good. Roll
The
with it.
Book of Luminaries, I think they also call it, which is a bit of a nicer name. And so this is
Mm-hmm.
basically about Enoch understanding the moon and the stars and how it links with heaven. He's taught by like an angel called Uriel, and he's given like an accurate description of like astronomy and the solar system. And I'm pretty certain this is representing a solar calendar, which at the time also contradicted the lunar calendar that was being followed. So
Right.
maybe another reason why it wasn't included. There was observations in there which lined with this real understanding of what we know of astrology today. So that's pretty interesting in itself.
Yeah.
So the idea of the third one is he's actually wants to like document his understanding for the world to understand so that everybody can share this knowledge of the universe. And that was the point of the astronomical book in itself. The last two get a bit more like wishy-washy for me.
They get a bit wishy-washy.
Get a bit wishy-washy in terms of like I find it hard to like find as interesting. There's not as much stuff in there is like controversial and things like that. I mean, the first stuff is very apocalyptic. It's quite depressing.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but maybe also that's why they want to bring people down, right?
Yeah.
Well, this horrible stuff happened to like giants and angels, but we're just going to protect you from that, and we'll just put that to one side. Or again, maybe they understood that people just knew about that because it happened not that long ago. So the fourth one's called Dream Visions, and it's a bit weird. He like retells the history of Israel, but through the symbols of animals. And to be honest, it kind of lost me at that. It kind of sounded a bit like Animal Farm, a bit. You know, we got like the it represents communism. What is it? The pigs.
No, they're capitalists.
Capitalists. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. And that's the idea. I think it was like these animals are representing stages of what happened throughout the history of Israel. And it starts off with like two cows getting on really well, and then there's like a third cow, and then there's like a white ball. It's very hard to follow, which is why I was just a bit like, there's a lot of other interesting stuff in the first bit, so I didn't really get into that one. And
did you actually go through these?
Yeah, I actually listened to them all. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, I just listened to audiobooks version of them and just write some notes as I went.
Oh, you're not shitting me, are you?
No.
Oh God, you have so much free time.
No, I just do it on my dog walks, and I go, yeah. It's just have it on the background, and I just pick out the things that interest me. That I write them down. Yeah.
Oh well, done.
And then last but not least, you got the fifth one, Epistle of Enoch, and in that he's basically just warning everyone that shit's going to go down if you start sinning, and that there's God's plan, and you got to follow it. And the idea is he kind of bring it all together. And just basically saying that God is going to judge you and you're going to find your times. So it's all a bit
those who remain faithful will be rewarded.
Yeah, once again, it's very, very similar tropes throughout. So that's why, again, I didn't really pick these ones out separately. But that first stuff is pretty crazy for me. I love some of the ideas in there. And a lot of people listening to this are probably like, this is not a conspiracy podcast. I hear you. So hear me out with just some end thoughts here. Okay. So what if these angels are actually the CIA? No,
they took out JFK. It took half an hour, but we got there.
No, what if these angels are aliens and they are from the stars, from the heavens?
Yeah. What if what Enoch is writing about is about visitors from...
And he was abducted. Enoch was abducted.
He was literally abducted, and they showed him around.
Yeah. That's something that came to my mind as a fun little side quest. There's also the idea there that some of these civilizations were a lot more advanced than us and maybe able to do things in different ways. I mentioned earlier that the angels taught the humans sorcery. Yeah, we don't know
Yeah,
source.
yeah, yeah.
As far as I'm aware, I am not able to like levitate shit or make fire come out the air or make it thunder. Like,
No.
so these guys are able to like manipulate the and teach that to the humans. So we either lost that, or we can still do it, but the CIA are keeping it secret.
And the Smithsonian Museum are hiding
Yeah,
the bones.
at home giant bones. A lot of ifs, buts, and maybes.
Oh, it's all fantastical nonsense, but it should be canon. It should be in the Bible.
You think
It
it
sounds
should?
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like got some of the what's. There's another pretty apocalyptic part of the Bible. I can't remember what it is.
Revelations.
Revelations. Yeah, exactly. Right. So it wouldn't go like out of place alongside something like
Ah,
that. So
chuck it in.
I think the really interesting thing is like again, like we said, why wasn't it included? Are some of these stories more controversial than we actually realize because there's some truth in it? Uh, and that's where the fun ideas go, which I thought was why it was quite a cool one to bring up. Plus, it does touch on a lot of like history and archaeology that actually did happen, right? We did find the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's cool as hell.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to say that it's even too fantastical for the Bible is going somewhere, right?
Well,
I mean,
exactly.
there's loads of magic in the Bible. Why can't this be part of it?
Well, the Ethiopians thought it's fine. Most
Yeah.
guys are like, what? You're worried about a few like angels and some giants? Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, or maybe the Ethiopians are keeping the giants secret because they
They're
know they're
quite
going
tall
to
people.
there. Well, maybe. Um, so yeah, lots of cool, interesting stuff there. At least I thought it was interesting. I appreciate this is quite a lot of people may listen to this might not really care about this sort of stuff if they're not religious or if they're into a different flavor of religion. Then maybe this isn't up their street. But this isn't really about. This is about the creation of humans and where we come from, and I think that's a conversation that everyone should be open to having, really. But
Yeah.
Mike, any final thoughts to close us out on this very, very, very hot Tuesday?
Not really. I like the Book of Enoch,
Hmm.
and I've enjoyed researching the little bits that I have.
Yeah, me too. Any? Do you reckon it was aliens?
Do I think it was aliens? No, I don't. I don't think it was aliens.
All right. Well, I think we call that one there. Another interesting rabbit hole to go down once again. Thanks everyone for listening, and yeah, keep on liking, sharing, commenting, and doing your thing. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening, everyone. Cheers.
All right.
Bye.